Welcome to the March the 2nd, 1999 taping of It Happened in Grand Prairie, as we bring you the history of our city and some of the people that have been very important in making that history, and some of them are continuing to make history this very day. We're very honored today to have two very special gentlemen that worked for your police department for many, many years. And we're real honored to have, first of all, a past detective, Don Sherman. Welcome, Mr. Don Sherman, to this set.
Thank you. Thank you. My pleasure.
And with all of the titles like assistant, deputy chief, acting chief, almost everything. Charlie Miller, we're very glad to welcome you to the set.
Thank you, Ruthie, for having us.
Both of y'all recent retirees from the police department, and I know that really did shake up the police department when they moved you all out and tried to move someone else in, because y'all had established yourself for many years. But with your permission, Mr. Miller, we're going to begin with Don Sherman and let him look out into his camera and tell us about the real Don Sherman. And we'd like for you to give your genealogy first of all. Tell us about your parents and your siblings.
My mother and dad, Norman and Nelma Sherman. I was born in a little small town in Arkansas. Lived there a very short time, and then my mother and dad and myself moved to a town East Texas, Atlanta, Texas. And I lived there. Went to grade school.
Did you have any brothers or sisters?
Yes, I did.
All right, let's name your brothers or sisters.
All right, I got a sister younger than me. It's Norma.
Okay.
And I have a brother that is W.L. Sherman. He just retired from Shell Oil Company. Okay. Then I have Jimmy, who is employed with hospital, I believe it's Hospital District in Amarillo, Texas. Okay. And we have, me and my wife, we have 4 children.
Okay, and now, you're going to name your wife now, aren't you?
I'm fixing to.
All right.
Maxine Sherman, and we have been married just a little over 39 years.
All right, now let's tell about the kids.
All right. Got Debbie. She is in real estate, lives here in Grand Prairie, and I got Mike, who is works for the company, and I got Laquita, who owns a flower shop here in town, and then got Diane, who works for a real estate company in Houston. In Houston,
all right. Now we have you established with a wife and a family. Now let's get back to Atlanta.
All right.
Where you went to school. Did you start the school in Atlanta?
Yes, just a little town right out 6 or 7 miles outside of Atlanta.
Let's name that.
Bloomberg, Texas.
Bloomberg, Texas,
It must have been a population of probably 250, maybe 300.
And at Bloomberg, was there any special teachers or anything at that little county school that you just really did take a liking to because they really did recognize Don Sherman?
I sure did. And her name was Miss Cleo Chambly, and I believe that she is still living. Okay. And I sure wish she could see this. Yes, she was super, and
encouraged you to study.
Yes, and I won't ever forget her.
Yes.
And but you know, I had a good. I enjoyed school.
And after Bloomberg, Texas school, where did we go?
We went to Atlanta, Texas, which is like say 6 or 7 miles.
Okay.
On up the highway, and went there, started there probably 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
And it's there, and it's got a good football team, and it's just east of Dangerfield.
What was your favorite subject and maybe your favorite teacher, and did you play any sports?
No, I played a little basketball, was about all, and I guess my favorite subject would have been agriculture.
All right.
I took that 4 years, and Mr. Wood, I understand he's passed away. He was a super good person, and we all enjoyed agriculture. We liked him, really liked him. And so that's...
And after you left Atlanta, when you graduated from high school, where did you go then?
Went to, for a short time, went to Colorado. My mother thought I was too young to be living by myself. I think I was 18 years old. And my dad was up in Colorado on a construction job. And so my dad kept calling me, Don, your mother, she wants you up here. You never have been by yourself. So anyway, I went up there and stayed about 6 months, and then I came back to Grand Prairie because I understood that General Motors was hiring, and there'd been some of the boys that had just graduated, or some of them had quit school and come out to General Motors. Mm-hmm. This was in '56, and so I came out to General Motors, put my application in, and they hired me.
All right, as what?
Assembler.
Okay,
went to work as assembly,
okay.
And back then General Motors would, they'd lay you off every now and then, yeah. Mm-hmm. And slow production down. And so this happened 2 or 3 times, so I was laid off, I guess about 59, and I'm gonna put an application in out here at LTV. So I put my application in, and sure enough, they hired me.
All right.
And that same day, I met Charlie.
You met Charlie Miller at
the same day,
right.
First day I went to work. Right. And so then I worked 6 weeks, and I was called back to General Motors. So I told Charlie, one day I said, I got to call back to General Motors. I got to go. He said, when? It's in the morning. You going in the morning? Yeah. Today's my last day. Charlie, it's $1 more an hour. I got to go. But me and him was close. We stayed in touch. And so Charlie kept on to me, put your application in for police reserve. And I knew I got to keep this on the quiet, because if my wife found out I was even thinking about going to work for the police department, when I'm working straight day shift at General Motors, off Saturday and Sunday. So anyway, on the quietest, I put my application in reserves. I got laid off again. I put my application in for regular and took the test, and Fred Conover hired me. I was the first person he hired after he made chief. He made chief May the 1st, 1961, and he hired me May the 15th, 1961.
And that is the former chief, Fred Conover, that still lives here in Grand Prairie, Texas, next door to you?
That's right.
Oh, my.
Super good fellow.
Super good fellow.
Yes.
I'm going to leave you being hired with the police department, but I've got to get to Charlie Miller and bring him up to speed. And Charlie, would you please look out into your camera and give us your genealogy, young man?
Well, my mother and father lived in Texarkana. I was born in Sherman, and right after we moved from Sherman, Texas, to Texarkana, Texas. Mm-hmm. My mother is Alice Miller, and my father, John H. Miller.
Okay.
He went to work for the railroad there in Texarkana, and I was raised in Texarkana for several years until we went to California. They wanted to be in the shipyards during the war.
Yes.
I was born in 1937, and so they moved out to California and was in the shipyards during the war. And after that, we moved back to Texarkana, and we remained there throughout my high school and junior college days there at Texarkana.
Do you have any brothers or sisters?
I certainly do. I have a sister, Sandra Whitworth, who lives in Palestine.
All right.
And I have a brother, E.J. Miller, who lives in Royce City. I also have 3 brothers that passed away before I was born, and they are buried there in Sherman, Texas.
Okay, and here we have you over in Texarkana. Did you start to school in Texarkana?
Certainly did. Started in elementary, went through...
Name the school and maybe someone important to you in that school, if you can recall that.
I think I can. Right. Liberty ILO, which was the elementary school, and then I went to Texarkana Junior High, and then again Texarkana, Texas High School.
All right.
I attended the 2 years of Texarkana Junior College before I moved to come to the Dallas-Fort Worth area. You're talking about favorite teachers. I remember very well one that I will always remember, and that was my Latin teacher, Mrs. Hamilton. She was a very colorful lady, and we got along real well. She was very helpful for me in getting me through school. She knew I was having trouble in a lot of things, so she was always helping me, and I never will forget that. She was a fine lady. She's passed away.
A wonderful mentor, wasn't she?
Absolutely, she was. And you know, you always look back to those over the years to remember that certain people in your life, you know, made a point for you. And I think she made a very good one to lead me and to give me directions that I needed.
All right. While you were in high school, did you have favorite subjects, or were you in athletics, or what was your interest?
Well, I started out in athletics. I played football and basketball. And my mother, she was very much against it because I seemed to get hurt quite a bit. And because of that, she told me very seriously that she wanted me to quit and find something else to do. So I joined and got involved in the band.
Great.
And I remained in the band throughout junior high.
And you played what instrument?
I played the trumpet.
Okay, now we're going to remember that when we need a trumpet player here in Grand Prairie, Texas.
Oh,
we'll call on Charlie, won't we? Oh, that was wonderful. And then you went on to junior college. And going to junior college, did you have a real move toward a career, or were you just going to get that behind you?
I did at that time. I was going to be an electronic engineer, and I was studying that in the junior college. Most of that was mainly just subjects like English, and I did get into some technical writing and things like that. But when I came to the Dallas-Fort Worth area, I moved to Grand Prairie and started going to Arlington State. It was Arlington State at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And attended college there to continue my study in engineering. But during that time, I was working at Chance Fault. And again,
doing what?
Well, at that time, they hired me as a tool designer.
Okay.
I came in as a tool designer, but that didn't last very long. I started school. Apparently, they didn't need that many tool designers. They thought they did, so they said, well, we're going to have to lay you off. And back there, those days, Donald testified to that we never knew when we was going to be laid off or not. I mean, we'd come to work every day anticipating getting a blue slip or something to be laid off. But they laid me off, and to take a job to support my family, there was a foreman out there that I got to know, brought me over to the production hangar as a painter, and I didn't know anything whatsoever about painting, absolutely nothing. But he gave me a job. He showed me how to do the job that he wanted me to do, and it was very simple, really. I did mostly the discrepancies that came up on the planes during the inspections, like a peeling paint or a decal off in the cockpit or one thing or another. That's where I had to go take care of them. And that's where I met Don. I was at the paint hangar. We were working for Ched Kunkel. I don't know if he remembers that or not, but he and I both began to do just a little bit of everything in the paint department and production hangar. And like Don said, he was working for General Motors, and he got called back, and that's when he and I parted, I guess, at that particular point, because he went to General Motors and I was still working at Chance Fault.
Yes.
But we kept in touch, like he said, and during that time I had the opportunity to get interested in the reserve department.
Who was the motivating factor to get you interested in the reserves? And let's get back in a few minutes. We need to see where you have got. You just mentioned that, and my family, to take care of my family. We don't even have a family on this tape yet.
Oh, I see. I'm sorry.
All right.
I got off on a tangent. But at that time, I was married to my, I guess, high school sweetheart, Wanda Aaron, and she and I married, and we had 3 children.
And you'll name them.
And yes, it was Lisa, Linda, and Lynette.
Okay.
3 girls. And we stayed married for 12 years, and we divorced. And I remarried, and I'm presently married to Deborah Lee Van Winkle.
All right.
And we have 2 girls.
And you'd name them?
Yes, that's Bridget and Courtney.
All right.
We had one son, Debbie and I had one son that passed away at 6.5 months. He had a little liver ailment and passed away. So he was my only son out of 6 girls, because I married Debbie, she had 1, so she became my daughter also.
Yes.
So I have 6 daughters and 8 grandchildren.
Oh, and you're just so pampered, because with all of those girls around bowing 3 times to the east to Charlie Miller,
Right.
that is great. All right, now that we have our family, and now that we're in the paint shop and y'all were together, you were going to tell me who was the instigator of getting you into this police reserves.
Well, during that time, I was laid off again at Chance Fault, and to try to find work. I did find a job at Timco Aircraft in Greenville, and it was as an industrial engineer. I had enough experience and enough schooling to put me in that category, and so they hired me as an industrial engineer, and I was working out there at the time, and was driving back and forth from Grand Prairie to Greenville. And back in those days, we had to come right down through the middle of Dallas, and the traffic was just horrendous.
Yes.
And we just bumper to bumper traffic trying to get through Dallas. And one day I saw a police officer directing traffic, and he was just doing such a wonderful job. He looked like he was a ballerina, I guess you'd say. He was just really doing a fantastic job. And I said to a friend of mine that was in the carpool with me, you know, I wonder if Grand Prairie has a reserve department. And he said, well, I don't know. And I said, let's go down and see. So we went down, and guess who we met? Don remembers him. It was Leroy Smith. At that time, he was, I think he was the chief of the reserves. And I met and talked with him. He was very encouraging for both of us. So Bob Fielding and myself joined the reserves at that time, and that was about in 1957. And we stayed a reserve officer all that during that time that I was out at Timco Aircraft in Greenville, and Buster Adams was the chief then.
Remember Buster?
And Monty Gatlin and I, who Monty was not on the reserves, but Monty Gatlin, who has retired since from the police department, was hired the same day by Buster Adams on June the 10th, 1960, as regular officers. And I began to put my time in for City of Grand Prairie as a patrolman.
Yes.
Was trained by Charlie Owens, and a lot of people know Charlie Owens.
Yes.
And Charlie did a good job, I think. He put me through a lot of situations to make me learn, but he was a very good trainer.
Oh, that's wonderful. Let's get back with Don Sherman now. Don Sherman, we have you just being hired for the police department. What did you begin as in the police department in Grand Prairie, Texas?
Began as a rookie.
A reserve?
No.
After the reserve.
I was a rookie patrolman. I put an application in for reserves, but at the same time I had took the test and
passed it.
Passed it, and they said, I said, am I in the reserves? I said, well, Fred Conover says he's hiring you as real quick. And I said, well, am I in the reserves? Well, yes. When am I going to get in the reserves? Well, we understand you go in regular. So, but that was around May 1st, and then the 15th, Fred hired me.
All right.
And I went to work, like I said, as rookie patrolman. And
nights or days?
I went to work evening shift, 3 p.m. till 11 p.m.
Okay. All right.
6 days a week.
Okay.
And
about how big was Grand Prairie at that time?
the population? Goodness, I'd say 25, maybe 30,000.
Okay.
And I was trying to think about how many officers we had.
And where was your assignment? You had about 3 officers, Charlie Miller's.
Well, we did. That was the maximum you had per shift, was 3 on the street.
Shift.
And sometimes, late nights, I was working late nights, we have worked with 2. One working west, everything north and south from Center Street, west, and then one east, center. And but you didn't do that on a Friday night or Saturday night. You do that, you get by with it on a Monday or Tuesday night.
Yeah.
Maybe Wednesday.
Yes.
And but we didn't have but 3 officers for a good many years on the street
shift.
at one time.
Yes.
And I think they had 2, maybe 3 detectives. And but I worked patrol for till 1966, 67, then I was transferred in the detective division.
Did you have to take a test to be able to transfer into the detective division?
That's a lateral transfer.
All right, who was the determining factor? Who encouraged you to become a detective?
Well, I had to say Charles Pokey Roberts. everybody knows Pokey
Okay.
Roberts.
All right.
And he's a super good fella, and he'd come to me and asked me was I interested, and I told him, yeah, I was. And he said, well, the next opening comes up, we'll see if we can't transfer you. And sure enough, he did, and Pokey was my supervisor, and he was, I liked him, I respected him, and he taught me lots of things. And was a detective till July, I believe it was July 71.
71, 67 to 71, you
Yes.
were a detective, and then what?
And I was promoted to sergeant. We took a test and got promoted to sergeant. And I went back into patrol division and stayed there till 75. I believe it was 75. And I was promoted to lieutenant.
All right.
And lieutenant, he was in the patrol division. I stayed there a while, and then I went back into the detective division, stayed in the detective division 3 or 4 years, and went back to patrol.
Back and forth?
Mm-hmm.
All
Yeah,
of this?
it's a lateral transfer.
Yes,
And,
okay.
it's good.
Where you were needed?
And then it's good, you know, that you transfer and
Yeah.
you keep up with what the patrol division is doing, what the detective division is doing. And then in 80-something, Harry Crum was chief, and I was in patrol division. He said, I'm going to transfer you to the detective division. And really, I wasn't interested at that time because I had a good superposition in patrol division. I was a lieutenant on the day shift, and but he said, I don't need your comments. This is where you're going.
This is it. Okay.
And that's where I've been since 86, 87.
86 till 98. That was a long drag. That was wonderful. I'm going to get back, and I want you to tell me one of the most interesting cases that you've ever handled. But I've got to bring Charlie up to speed on his now. Where are we now in your career? You're at the police department. You've been hired in.
Well, Buster Adams, as I said, hired me, and I went to work on a late night shift and working from 11 to 7. And Monty Gatlin, who was hired at the same time, went to work on the day shift. It took me about 7 years to manage to take the test and pass it and make sergeant. So I made sergeant within about 7 years. And I believe this is correct. This goes back for so long ago I can't remember. But I believe in 74, 75 I made lieutenant.
All right.
Most of this time was a sergeant. I worked in CID, but when I made lieutenant, I was like Don. I went back on the street as a uniformed lieutenant and handled the patrol shifts as lieutenant. It was, I'm thinking it was prior to 81 or 80, somewhere in 81, I was transferred to as a lieutenant in the Criminal Investigation Division. And I was there in 83 as a lieutenant when the chief told me that I was selected to go to the FBI National Academy in Quantico, Virginia, which I thought was a pretty good honor because no one from the city at that time had gone to the Federal Bureau of Investigation's Academy. So I felt pretty honored to have been chosen and selected to do that. And in 83, I went to the academy, and while I was in the academy, Chief Kunkel, who David Kunkel was the chief at that time, indicated to me that he was going to promote me, which I had taken an examination also, a civil service examination, and he was going to promote me to captain. And that came during the time I was up at the academy. And I remained as a captain over the patrol division for, several years. And then later was transferred and acted as a internal affairs captain and took care of internal affairs investigations. And then later they needed me to take over the support bureau, and that's where I was when I retired as of January of 1999.
And between the two of you, you're the only one that got to be the acting chief of police. Is that right?
Of the two of us, yes. There's been
us.
some other acting chiefs,
Yes.
but again, of the two of us.
I think that was a distinct honor also.
Absolutely. I
Charlie.
felt like it was quite an honor to be asked to serve in that capacity during the time that they were selecting the new chief, Glenn Hill.
Now, we have both of you all retired. We have only 4 minutes left on our tape. We have only 3 minutes left on our tape. I want you to tell your most interesting tale, and then I want you to come back with something as exciting.
I was in the detective division, I believe, somewhere around 1969, and we was having robberies where women were working at convenience stores, and there was 2 males came in to the store and robbed the place. The one was on North Beltline, right in the edge of Irving, shot the lady in the back of the head, killed her. And then a short time later, very few days later, in Grand Prairie, 2300, maybe 2310 West Main, there's a little convenience store there. Then come in and robbed this lady and made her kneel down on her hands and knees and shot her in the back of the head. Then, very few days later, at Pantago, same thing. A lady went and robbed her and shot her and killed her. And I personally worked on that for 7 days a week and 16 to 20 hours a day. And was finally able to clear that with 2 arrests, and we got convictions, and they both got life terms, and they came out of the penitentiary. I understand one of them has since died, and the other one, I understand, still lives in Grand Prairie.
You've had a very, very interesting career. You have about 1 minute to tell your story, Charlie Miller.
Oh, my goodness. I don't like to tell my story in 1 minute, but as far as case is concerned, the one that stands out in my mind is the most violent case was the one that involved a suspect by the name of Prairie, who went on a shooting spree at Western Transportation System, ended up killing 6 people that were employees of the company, and it was just a really tragic event. I was a lieutenant in CID at that time, and I never will forget the innocent people that went to work that day and was shot and killed by him because he went on to some kind of anger rage. But I guess if I had to sum up everything and tell you how I feel that I've had a good career. I feel proud of what I was able to do while I was there, and I know Don does too. We came in it with the thought of serving the public, and that's what both of us did. We believed in it, and we felt like that it was deserving that we do this because we took this job to serve the public. But I guess most of important things that I think I remember is that I was instrumental in helping Harry Crum bring community policing to Grand Prairie, and also to bring the fight to Grand Prairie. That was one of my events that I really enjoyed because I worked with so many interesting people. And through that, the fight group won an award given by Attorney General Morales on the Texas drug war on drugs, and I was real proud of that.
I'm proud of both of you gentlemen. I want to thank y'all so much for being with us today. You're honored us.
Thank you, Ruthie.
Helping us with
Appreciate
this
it.
history tape number 361. And this is Ruthie Jackson reminding you that history is as we live and do, and they recommend their type of work to young people.